You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
It's time to engage a discussion about Disengage because it's Monday night, it's 7 p.m., and it's time for Mission Log Live. Now, let me caveat that. It's 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it's 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but it is definitely Mission Log Live time. I'm Norman Lau, and I'm a little rusty.
I'm Holly Avis. Tonight we are continuing our review for Star Trek Picard Season 3 with Episode 2, Disengage. As always, we want to hear from you in the Facebook chat and live with us, so you know what to do. You click on the Zoom link, give us a ring from your one-tap smartphone, or you can call us at 669-900-6833. Enter the meeting code and the password, and you will be in the Earl Green Room.
So before we get over into the chat, I just want to say hi, Ollie. We haven't done this in a while. How you been?
We haven't done this in a while. I was so discombobulated because I mean, if you guys were watching last week, I was in a hotel room. I was actually in Hawaii, and so I sort of had to jimmy rig that. And then I'm home now, but I was like, what was my setup? How did I do this? So it's fine. I'm good to go. How are you?
We're good. I'm good. Again, a little rusty. I'm kind of like trying to identify like all the different screens that are going on. So I have my note screen, I have the Zoom screen, I have the chat screen, which is going off incredibly, it's great because everyone's here, everyone showed up to talk about the show. Just to catch up, you and I with the show, loved the saga of your dry cleaning in the last episode. I was super
laundry. Guys, I was in Hawaii working, and I had to stay an extra week unexpectedly and didn't bring enough clothes. So I had to have the hotel wash my work clothes, and I needed them to be delivered. And the only time frame that they were going to deliver them was when we were doing the show. So that's what happened.
So we're all good there. So we're good. Holly's got her clothes. She's got her home set up. The sound is great.
Great.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's better than the $20 headphones that I bought in Hawaii last week to do the show.
Well, let's take a look at who is up with us here in the chat. Now, I know that your dad and your mom are in there. So
hello, Mom and Dad.
Bob and your mom, Maggie.
Margie.
Sorry, Margie. I can't see. Hold on a second. I'm going to have to start using these like on the show because I'm allergic to Retinax 5.
Yeah.
Right?
My parents are here. They're probably watching me and you on the big screen.
Oh, so I get to put my glasses on for them on the big screen. This is for the big screen. Holly's parents. You're going to see a lot more of that during the course of the show. Let's see. We have Paul. Hello, Paul. We have Jane Marajan.
How many Pauls? How many Pauls are here?
I am hoping at least 3. We like getting at least 3. Let's see. Dave. Thanks for being here. Kim, Heather, good to see you.
Yeah, hi, Heather.
Chris Riker, Carlos. Let's see, looking for another Paul. Brett, Matthew.
Cooley's here. Hi, Cooley.
Cooley.
Did you say John? I don't call him John. I have to call him Cooley because there's too many Johns.
And now we have our Cooley sighting and the Cooley cheer. We're trademarking that, by the way. Dom, what's up, Dom? Metal horns for Dom. That's our special call sign, and on Discord as well. Let's see. We have, all the kind of like the regulars, some irregulars. Just
irregulars.
All the time. Jama. A new name for me, Jama. Welcome. There's another Paul. That's 2.
Yeah.
Cat Mike. Hi, Bree. I just saw Bree actually a few hours ago. We're part of the same Rotary Club here. So Bree is a new member to the Patreon community and on Discord, and a huge Star Trek fan. She gave me an Uhura duck as a gift.
Like a rubber duck?
Like a rubber duck. Yeah. I guess there's like a whole collection of like Star Trek rubber duck.
There is. I worked at CBS when those were made, and I thought they were absolutely ridiculous, but I have data.
They are awesome. They're awesome in that I think they're kind of like, if you have too many Funko Pops, then I think you're going to start like collecting ducks because why not, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. Couple other people here. Scott Palm, good to see you. So we have Mark. Sean. Hey, Sean Dempsey. Good to see you, my brother. Haven't seen you in a while. Yeah, a great crowd. Thanks for being here. We do a little housekeeping before we jump into the show because I know that we have a lot to talk about and a lot of coverage on Disengage. So
yeah,
a little short housekeeping thing here. So this week on Mission Log, our coverage of Voyager continues this Thursday with Remember. This is the one
yes.
Yeah.
Good old B'Elanna Torres.
Yeah. So this is the B'Elanna dreams turn into nightmare story as she relives someone else's painful history. So make sure that you stay tuned for that. That's going to drop this Thursday. And just to remind everyone that Mission Log The Orville and Mission Log Prodigy are available as podcasts, and they're also available as videos. So if you want to catch up on recent episodes, like Mike and Jessica's interview for Mission Log The Orville with writer and producer Brandon Braga, you can find that on our YouTube channel. You can also find our latest Prodigy deep dive into the Blu-ray and mine and Char's review of the 75 plus minutes of bonus features, which are fantastic if you haven't gotten the DVD yet. So go to podcasts.roddenberry.com to follow the podcast, or go to youtube.com/Roddenberry Entertainment to follow all of the video versions of those podcasts. You can always find our podcasts at podcasts.roddenberry.com. So I know I haven't done this in a while, and I really tried to keep this one short, people, but this was a jam-packed episode, so I think we should jump right into it. I'm going to take a second.
Yeah, you got to lubricate your voice.
Whet my whistle and put on my glasses so I can read this. I know it's terrible. You're going to have to bear with me. Let's see. Okay, Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 2, Disengage. 2 weeks ago, on board the SS Celios, Jack Crusher is tap dancing his way around a Fenris Rangers inspection. He insists he is delivering medical supplies to the people of Sarnia Prime who are suffering from the highly lethal Galarian fever. Jack also has a gift of phaser rifles for the Rangers if they wanted to, say, arm the very same warlords who engineered the fever, forcing them to kill each other off, essentially solving the problem. As the Rangers leave with their bribes, their leader activates his comlink and says, "Reach out to the marked woman. We've found him." In the present, Jack, Picard, and Riker are on the Helios trying to figure out who their enemy is and how they're going to save Beverly, whose life pod is rapidly running out of energy. The only way out is Picard's shuttle, and hopefully the Titan is still close by to intervene, which it is, just outside the nebula and just within Federation space. After a thorough threat assessment, Shaw orders the Titan to maintain position, believing the risk is too great to save Picard and Riker, with an exploratory vessel that is far outgunned by the larger enemy ship. And just as Jack, Picard, and Riker are about to abandon the Helios, a spread of enemy photon torpedoes destroy their shuttlecraft. On the Talos Prime, Raffi watches the news coverage of an attack that killed 117 people. She reaches out to her handler for further instructions, but is instead told to stand down because Starfleet believes they have the terrorist properly identified as the Romulan dissident Larak Taluko. Raffi knows that he's a small-time player who bought the portal weapon from a Ferengi black market arms dealer named Sneed. Demanding to investigate Sneed further, Raffi's handler orders her instead to disengage. Aboard the Titan, Seven confronts Shaw in his ready room and presents him with two options: either be the hero who saved two heroes, or be the captain who let two legends die. Back on the Helios, Picard safeguards the ship with transporter inhibitors, which prevent Jack from being beamed out, proving that he's the enemy's target and not Beverly. After successfully thwarting a boarding party, the Helios is then caught in a tractor beam, and when all appears lost, the Titan swoops in, breaks the tractor beam's hold, and beams everyone from the Helios aboard, including Beverly, who was beamed directly to sickbay. Back on the Talos Prime, Raffi reconnects with her ex-husband Jay, and who has the underworld connections she needs to go after Sneed. She asked Jay how he got out of the lifestyle, and he said it was a simple choice. He chose his son, and now Jay demands Raffi to make the same choice: reconnect with their son Gabe, or have Jay set up a meeting with Sneed, and Raffi's expression was his answer. On the Titan, after everyone from the Helios is reunited with Seven and Shaw on the bridge, the enemy ship finally hails them. Shaw accepts and is greeted by Captain Vadic, who informs Shaw and Picard that Jack Crusher has a sizable bounty on his head. And after scanning Vadic's ship, it has the firepower to take him by force. Vadic demands Jack to be surrendered in 1 hour, and as an example of what her ship is capable of, its tractor beam latches onto and hurls the Helios at the Titan. After assessing the damage, the Titan suffered what Sidney LaForge described as blunt force trauma. Knowing that Vadic's ship is capable of destroying the Titan, Shaw is looking for options. Seven offers some of the off-book intel about a pirate ship fitting Vadic's description, especially the firepower. Shaw later strides into the brig with proof that Jack Crusher is an intergalactic fugitive. He then turns to Seven and relieves her of duty for insubordination. Picard and Riker appeal to Shaw on her behalf, but instead, he gives them one last chance to get the truth of Jack Crusher. The truth Riker can clearly see, but Picard is hesitant to speculate on. Later in the brig, Picard sits with Jack Crusher, who gives Jean-Luc chapter and verse of who he is and what he and Beverly have been doing out in space all this time on the Ilios, which was providing aid to those in need. Picard point blank asks Jack who his father is, to which Jack barks back that he never had one. With time ticking away, Picard knows that his only two options are to either surrender Jack to save the Titan or protect Jack and risk the lives of over 500 people. Back on Metalis Prime, Raffi finally meets with Sneed, who offers her a slug of cola as she offers him a bag of precious gemstones. Raffi impresses upon him that she works for Toluco and wants to know who framed him for the attack on Starfleet. Sneed needs proof that Raffi isn't working for Starfleet or Section 31 and forces her to dose her eye with Splinter, his signature drug which doubles as the truth serum. But before she passes out, a white-haired Klingon cuts down Sneed and his bodyguards with lightning-fast efficiency. Worf lifts Raffi off the floor and repeats what her handler told her earlier: do not engage. On the Titan, Picard and Riker try to convince Shaw not to turn over Jack to Vadic. Shaw pushes back, reminding Riker that since Beverly is unconscious, there's no way to confirm Jack's story. Jack manages to escape the brig and make his way to the transporter room while Riker checks in on Beverly in sickbay and tries to revive her with a hypospray as her doctor watches in protest. On the bridge, Vadic hails Shaw and monologues about the name of her ship, the Shrike, named after a small carrion earth bird that kills surgically, carefully, and without anger or malice. Suddenly, Shaw is informed that Jack escaped the brig and orders his ship-wide lockdown. Seven finds Jack in the transporter room, and both face off at phaser point. Picard persuades Shaw to let him go, believing Jack is surrendering to protect his mother and the lives aboard the Titan. And just as the transporters are unlocked, Beverly is escorted to the bridge by Riker. And in one silent exchange, one deep look into each other's eyes, Picard commandeers the ship under Admiral's authority. And when Shaw demands to know why, Picard says, because he's my son. And with that, Shaw throws his full support in with Picard and orders the Titan to fire on the Shrike before fleeing into the nebula. The end. And hopefully the end of these. I gotta get
wow. You can read the chat with those without them?
I can, because they're different sizes on my screen. Maybe I just need to do that. I know that the chat was going crazy when I was reading this because I could see like the chat move on this side and my script on this side. But let's get into it, Holly. Let's talk about the episode a little bit, and we're going to get into some of our callers because I know that our callers have a lot to discuss.
I have a lot to discuss too. Listen, I enjoyed the episode. I always enjoy the episodes, but I have thoughts.
All right. Well, what is your number one thought?
My number one thought. Didn't we already do the unknown child?
Well, we did in the Earl Green room earlier, but I think it's a fair point of discussion for we
already did this with David and Kirk. And then the other thing is I was like, oh, maybe we're just like, Picard's going to be convinced that this is his. Like, listen, this is great motivation for Picard. Like, I am not denying that at all. They have to introduce new characters to keep it interesting, as much as they're also relying on us being excited that we're seeing this, most of the crew from the Next Generation. And the nostalgia of that, they do have to introduce new characters in order to, get new storylines. And this is great motivation. But we already did this with David and Kirk. And then I was thinking, well, maybe we're just like we're just going to be convinced that this is his son and that it's not really. But we already did that in Bloodlines too. So like either way, we've already done this.
I know, we're at this interesting tipping point with a series having to move on. And you're right, introduce new characters to keep things interesting and fresh. But at the same time, we know that Terry has crafted this particular series 3, or season 3,
yes,
to appeal to the Next Generation fans. That's been built up in the marketing and the advertising and a lot on social media about this is the season that the Next Generation fans deserve. And I can understand that. But at the same time, though, if you are repeating a trope in Star Trek that many fans have seen over the course of their history, some 30, some 40, some 50 years with Star Trek, how do you not create a trope in Star Trek for a new audience that's never seen this before?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I'm not a writer. I'm not saying that I have like a better idea of how they could have introduced.
Yeah, no, that's just a rhetorical question.
Yeah,
it's just.
But I mean, it's not just a trope in Star Trek though. Like this is a trope in a lot of television and film. Is like for a male character, the unknown child is. We see this a lot. We see it a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
but I genuinely don't know a better way. Like I'm not a writer. That's why there's writers.
Looking at the chat, I mean, Jane and Mike both bring up some pretty good points. That's Jane says the storyline will be thin in order to deliver the love letter to the fans. And it may be. I mean, we still have 8 hours worth of content left, right. 8-ish hours. And then Mike says that's the issue with 800 plus hours of content. There are always going to be parallels that can be drawn with prior content unless you are completely new to the franchise, and maybe Star Trek Picard is what you started with. And now you're really only seeing, if you haven't been inundated with all 800 hours worth of content, something that maybe actually is interesting to you. Like, ooh, Jack Crusher, I've never heard of this name before.
Right.
That's an interesting conversation to have with somebody who hasn't been involved, with these names, with these characters. So
can we talk about his name too?
We can.
Is it, I mean, listen, I get it. But is it weird that she named him after her dead husband, who was like such... he was so present throughout their almost relationship. He was like this ghost that haunted them. Like, Picard always had feelings for her, but, he didn't really act on them because he was the best friend. And then okay, they got together, they had a kid, presumably accidentally, but I feel like they're both pretty advanced in age for it to be a true accident. I don't know. But then she was like, oh, I'm going to name him Jack. I'm like, you're going to name him after your dead husband, who was like this ghost in your relationship with his father? Wild. That's a choice. It's a choice.
It's better than naming him Candle, also a ghost.
Oh, God. I hate that episode.
I know. I just had to do that to keep you on your toes. Also to get a laugh out of Cherie, who's waiting to get in from the early.
Cherie's early today. Let's talk to her.
I don't know. Let's talk to her, right? She's here. She showed up, but I understand what you're saying. There's some great comments in the chat about that, and maybe Cherie can enlighten us on that or something else. But what's on your mind, Cherie? Thanks for joining us tonight. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm sorry, Holly. I still say Candle Baby.
Candle Baby.
It would make
creepy. I mean, it would have been weird. Like either way, it would have been weird. She either has a kid with her grandmother's former lover, or she has a kid with her dead husband's best friend. It's yikes either way.
Yeah, but you're right. It is a little suspect, that he's named Jack. But he also has a lot of different aliases. I thought that one of his aliases, something Carvel, I thought they were referencing like the ice cream cake company, like back here on Earth, because I love Carvel cakes. Ice cream cakes.
Oh, you went to cake? That's where your brain went? It went to cake?
It usually does. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just me. I'm a very simple creature, bourbon and desserts. So,
okay.
Yeah. But this isn't my time. This is Cherie's time. So what's happening? What were your thoughts on either this particular detail or any other details on the show?
So I did want to say, because I didn't get to comment on it last time, there were some comments about Beverly kicking butt and being awesome, and maybe that not being in her character. I actually really liked that, because I felt like in the original Next Generation, they didn't give her enough to do. And so just seeing her being able to shoot aliens and do cool stuff is really cool. And I'm glad that Gates McFadden got to do that. And so that makes me happy. So
yeah, I mean, listen, guys, we haven't seen this character for, 20 plus years in her time, her timeline. And she's a mom trying to protect her offspring.
Yeah.
And doing dangerous stuff. I mean, according to what they're doing, I mean, they're literally doing kind of Doctors Without Borders without protection.
Right.
They're doing some very dangerous work. And I was talking to a buddy of mine about this, and he's like, oh, seriously, 20 years. I mean, who can change in 20 years? I haven't been to a high school reunion in 30 years. So if I walk into a high school reunion from when they last saw me, because everyone's best buds when you graduate, right? And I said, well, what do you do now? Like, well, for the last 20 years, I did this job and I did, this for fun. And I did this, as a side job. And I got married, got divorced. I'm just like giving examples. And they would have been like, that's not you. That was never you. But it was.
Yes. Yeah.
Until it is. So I have, I can understand people's points, but at the same time, though, if you're doing something that pushes you to like this extreme position in your life and you haven't talked about it with anyone for 20 years, that can happen. I think that's real. I think that could possibly definitely happen. So sorry, people. I disagree with that. And I like where you're going with that, Sherry. I like that that Bev got a chance to be a little bit more proactive as a character and get into the thick of it. I thought that was a neat change. Yeah.
I really liked that part. It occurred to me during or after the second episode, though, that like she has the like child version of like a girl in a show that always needs a boyfriend, because like one of the problems with Next Generation was they always kind of just cast her as the mother. That was just her personality, or like her entire personality was that she was Wesley's mother. And now they're like, oh, well, we don't have Wesley anymore. Give her another kid. It's like, oh, wait. I hope this doesn't go downhill. Like, I like seeing her shoot aliens and be really cool. So I hope they don't like be like, okay, well, now you're a mother again.
I mean, they're on a pretty sophisticated ship. I know that they probably have rapid DNA testing on the ship. It's very possible they can do that. Sherry has been intercepted. Your feed was intercepted.
Yeah, that's weird because I can see my video normally, but then the other one looks weird. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, we've been. The aliens are here. Maybe the Vulcans are here. You guys, are the Vulcans here?
Yes.
Let's see. We have purple beings. Let's see.
The light got blown out on Candle Baby.
It's a specter that's haunting the show.
What if she had named her kid Ronan? That would have been weird.
Yes.
Well, it looks like we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty with our video stream. But the thing is, what's great about this show is that it's both video and audio. So the audio show must go on, as they say in the podcast business. So we're going to have, let's talk about one more point with you, Cherie. Then we're going to take a little bit of a break here, and then we're going to get into our next caller. So final thoughts for this week's episode. Were you engaged or did you disengage?
Still engaged. Still have no notes. Still really enjoying myself, and I loved Worf. I loved seeing Worf.
Yeah.
Right?
Too.
Yeah.
Zaddy Worf.
I loved that, like, because like the term being Worfed. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that, but it basically means that you want to attack someone, but then like you get zapped by something or something throws you off. Like,
you got Worfed.
Actually do cool stuff, like not never, but like so often, like they're like, oh, Worf will get him, and then it's like, no.
Yeah. He had to truly use his. He had a mek'leth, right? It wasn't a bat'leth. It was a mek'leth.
It's a new weapon. It's a new designation of weapon. I looked it up and I can't remember, but
oh really?
Yeah,
it looked like a mek'leth to me. Okay, I'm excited for a new Klingon weapon then.
Yeah,
Yay.
so I've been kind of FOMOing on the cruise. So I've been like looking at all of JVC's and Champions like photos of the stuff, all the props and stuff like that have been on display. And there's a section on Worf's new weaponry, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's longer than a mek'leth, but obviously shorter than a bat'leth since it's a one-handed weapon. So I
love Klingon weapons.
Yeah,
I'm a fan.
I'm definitely going to have to collect something like that. And it also has this wonderful kind of like, this blood groove in it. And I'm sure that it slices custard just as well as a mek'leth. So, no one has to worry about that.
And just as well as a Ferengi neck?
Because they're also as soft as custard. I mean, according to what Worf did. That was a pretty extremely was I the only one that yelled there can be only one when that happened, or is that just my reflex?
I guess that's just same as your reflex with cake.
Exactly. So again, I'm a creature of habit. I like bourbon, I like cake, I like beheadings. I must have been, I should have lived in the 17th or 18th century France, or from France, which apparently maybe Jack Crusher is not from. Of course.
We don't know where he's from. Why does he have an accent?
Because the director said so.
Listen, the actor is from the UK, and they just
Sure.
let him keep his natural accent. But like, where was he raised by Beverly in the 20 plus years that he's been alive? Because that's not inherited like genetically. He doesn't have an English accent just because his father is English. Well, French with an English accent. I have a lot of questions, and I hope they get answered.
Some great answers in the chat. So Brett says, because all Frenchmen have English accents?
Well, we've learned more about that, and we learned more about his family and their goings back and forth because of wars and stuff. So we've learned more about Picard's family and why he's French but has an English accent. I want to know more about this child.
And we may get there. We may get there. We may not. But that was one of the things that Holly and I were talking a little bit off camera about. If you're going to start seeding a lot of these details into the show that people know about, especially the deep cut, deep trivia fans that have been following The Next Generation since 87 and, have been stalwart fans since, you can't drop details like this without having an explanation. So I hope Terry Metalis is prepared, for the fan wave of
the
backlash, onslaught if it's not explained. But that's for him to take care of. We're just here to speculate. Great to have you here on the show, Shuri. Good to see you again.
Yay, thank you.
See you next time.
Bye.
Before we get into our next caller, Mr. Paul Harvith, we're going to talk a little bit more about a real French place with real French people with real French wine, and that's the Chateau Picard from the real
Chateau Picard
from our friends at Star Trek Wines. So you and John talk about Star Trek Wines in the last episode, and you were talking about all of these wonderful special vintages that have been shown on screen. So you have 2221, 2386, but the one I wanted to talk about is it's like the showstopper bottle. It's the 2401. It's the one with the metal label. It's the one that Picard gifts to Shaw, and it's the one that Shaw, I can understand if you're a Malbec fan, would set aside if you're not a Grand Cru, vintage enjoyer of wines. And that's okay. I can forgive him for that. Some things maybe not. I can forgive him for that, for being that kind of a connoisseur or snob. But there's, this particular, have you seen this one up close? Have you held this in your hands?
Yeah. I haven't held it, but I've seen close-ups of the label.
Is it as gorgeous as it looks?
Yeah,
in person?
It's very pretty. Yeah.
Yeah. The production of these products, and you were talking about this in the last show. We're at this wonderful stage where it's almost kind of like the prop makers know that these things are going to sell in the retail market. So why not make them as good for the retail market, right?
We'll also make them good enough to literally be used as a prop too.
Exactly. So there was that wonderful shot in Jack Crusher's opening scene where he opens up a case of Romulan ale, and I'm like, is that a prop? Or is that now an actual product that's being supplied to them from our friends also at Star Trek Spirits? So just to go over a little bit of the details of this incredible product, right? If you have the 2401 vintage, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't bought it yet, you really want to, and add this to your collection. It has a full metal label and a silicone rubber topper that looks like what John was describing as the melted wax seal on the bottle.
Yeah.
The varietal is it's a Grand Cru Bourgeois Bordeaux.
Very good.
Yeah, I practiced that literally 5 minutes before we got down here, and I think I got it right. But the interesting thing here is that it has the silicone topper stamped with Vendage à Chateau Sol 3, right? And I did some Googling, and it really translates to loosely vintage of the Castle Sol 3 or Earth, meaning that it's vintage of Earth.
Yep.
Right.
Because we're the Sol system.
Intergalactic wine fans out there, right? So I think that's fantastic. Have you tried this at all? Or have you? I haven't
tried the 2401 yet. I've had the other two though.
All right. Let's see, Carlos. Yes, Earl wins the internet for fixing our video. And if you're looking at it right now, you're looking at some of the fantastic prop design and structural design that our friends at StarTrekWines.com have been doing for us. You have the 3 bottles of the Picard vintages. You have that incredible Canar bottle, which is probably one of the coolest things I have in my collection of limited glassware. You have the Ryzen bottles that we've seen on, I believe it was on Strange New Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think so, yeah.
Yes, and so much more. So if you want to collect, any of these wines, which are fabulous, you want to go to StarTrekWines.com. And remember, if you want to get your free United Federation of Planets medallion, add it to your cart, use the checkout code Roddenberry, and then that will subsidize or remove the price of that, and then you get that medallion for free in your order. So remember, go to the checkout, add the medallion to your cart, use the code Roddenberry. I think we can all remember that. Use that code Roddenberry, and then that will get deducted from the overall total of your purchase. And if you want to save the bottle, just to do a little cross promotion here, if you want to save your bottle, keep it on display, you can decant your wine.
Yes.
Right? And then put it.
We love decanting.
Your Federation decanter, that gorgeous glass decanter that you can buy, and it's available on toink.com, where you can also use the code Roddenberry to get 15% off of your order. It's a win-win, really. It's literally like giving Fenris Rangers phasers to end warfare on a planet with warlords. I mean, it's that much of a win-win. So thanks, everyone, for enduring my spiel. And I think we're going to get back to the show, because I think Paul Harvest has things to say.
Paul has thoughts.
He's giving me the shepherd's crook. He goes, "Get off the ad, Norm. Let's talk about some Star Trek."
No, never, Norman. I always love to hear you two banter and talk, and just, it's a lot of fun. Holly, you hit so many points up front on what I was talking about. Haven't we seen this before kind of deal? So I won't.
A little bit.
Yeah, I'm not even talking about that. Let's start with number one. I still love Shaw. This person, I like this guy. I like his attitude, and I just hope he comes out well.
Can I ask you, because there's a throwaway line, and listen, Norman and I were talking about this, that Riker's foreshadowing felt a little bit too much. Like there's two different sequences in which he's like, "You don't see what I see," and it just feels a little bit forced. But there is a throwaway line about Shaw and about his psychological profile, and I'm like Vadek says it, and I'm super interested. Like I feel like they're doing him well on character development, because
Absolutely.
There's just these minuscule foreshadowings, throwaway lines that they're working in. What about a psychological profile? I want to know more.
Well, it's interesting you use the word forced, because that was Michelle and I looked at each other and go, "Wow, is this being forced?" It just that was the word we used. It's just like, "Oh, well, you're going to like this," but we're liking it for a lot of different reasons. And you brought up the person's name. Is Vadek like one of the greatest characters we've had in a long time?
She's a pretty good baddie so far.
Wow, she's creepy. She's spicy. She sort of reminds me of like Q. He shows up, and there's going to be problems, and you go, "Well, where's this going?" Right? And she's just enjoying this acting. Oh my God, she's fabulous. I think she's just fabulous. So,
well, she has the one thing that kind of sets people back on their heels a little bit. She has information, right? And she's not afraid to use it. I mean, I really like that she reinforced the fact that Picard in his synthetic skin. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
so
in the synthetic flesh, and
right?
she knew Shaw too. She was like, Captain Liam Shaw, and he's like, "That's me." Which, by the way, reminded me of Nero in the 2009 film when he's like, "Hello, Christopher, I'm Nero."
I'm Nero, right?
It's, parts of it are really entertaining, but not for Star Trek reasons, just for like entertaining reasons. It's pretty funny. And the actors I think they're doing a pretty good job with it. I mean, first of all, who else's son is it going to be, right? If it's somebody else's son, I'm going to be surprised. So I said I wasn't going to talk about it, but it's just like, oh, it's crazy.
But we already did that. We already also did. He didn't end up being Picard's son. That was in Bloodline. So
all right. I got one more. First of all, one more, and then my final line leading into our next caller. It's going to be set up for him. When did all the cities in Star Trek become like Blade Runner cities? Have you noticed? They're all this sort of hanging, creepy, weirdo places.
Because that's the future. That's the future. That's what cities look like in the future.
But they didn't have to buy into it. Couldn't they invent their own creepy cities? They look like they're straight out of Blade Runner, don't they?
But it's
it's that dystopian future that science fiction designers love to design for, man. What can I say? I know it's no Ryza.
I mean, but it's supposed to be like weird and underground. I mean, how else would you design a city to look if you're trying to, like, she's there to get information and there's drug addicts abound and like she's a former addict, and like how would you have that city look? Would it look pristine? Do you think?
Well, they just all seem to have that. Vegas got swallowed up by a very dark cloud under, Vegas not in the sunshine, right?
Right.
I don't know. Vegas with fog. It's just
Vegas with fog. Okay.
That can be our party title. In Vegas with fog.
Vegas with, it will cause a fog.
Okay. So, and I think the thing with Worf off with his head was like, that's the scene they always wanted to do in next gen, but never did. Right. It's
right.
And off goes his head. All right. But
it was a little bit too much for network television.
At least there wasn't the blood. It was a
clean cut.
Yes, it does all the, sealing when it cuts. I'm going to leave you with this, and it's not the next caller, but I'm sure Alan down the line may have something to say about this. Wait till Vash shows up. And what kind of surprises does she have? And I will leave you with that.
For sure.
Peace out. Love you guys. Thanks for the
Paul.
work. It's great to see you.
Great to see you too.
Oh God, Picard's got so many children.
I want to answer one of Carlos's questions here. So Carlos says, did you guys preview more than these 2 episodes? I have not. I don't watch I haven't at least yet watched the screeners because I like being here with you all talking about it in real time.
We saw the first 2. Champion and I saw the first 2 at the premiere in Los Angeles. And given the opportunity, I will not watch more because I don't want to accidentally know something that I shouldn't and make a comment on it subconsciously. Right. So I'm watching it in real time with everybody.
Sometimes when you see like too far ahead and you're trying to have these conversations, it can't help but kind of like leak into your subconscious with like, maybe, those kind of like reactions like, oh, wait and see, and you just kind of lead on the conversation in a less genuine way. Yes, Paul, right. Paul Dubs, you want the hoverboards, power laces, and flying cars future? Yeah, so do we all. And sports almanacs with dust covers, because if you like dust, and you can get the dust buster, all those kind of things. We want to get that in our future. I love the background.
Brandon's here. He's coming straight in from 10 forward.
That's a well-lit bar. And we're at a shortage of well-lit bars here in this series so far.
Yeah, well, there's a shortage of bright lighting in general, especially on the ships. But I guess they've put in the reflective floors to make up for it.
There you go. We're getting all kinds of ambient lighting.
I definitely found myself wondering how many people slip on just the floor throughout their average day on any of the new ships. They look very slippery.
It's funny that you mentioned
can't they give boots? Can't they give them Starfleet regulation boots that get around that?
So I used to sword fight in a parlor where, I know it sounds very elite, but it was. So I used to sword fight in a parlor that had almost mirror finished floors. And the biggest complaint was that we stuck to the floors too much to be able to execute certain maneuvers. So I know it's just the thing, they can get that showroom shine, but it's tacky at the same time. Stylish.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I get your point. It's but it is nice though to be able to kind of I don't know, like you could have like, LCARs like reflected in the floors, so you don't have to crane your neck all the time. You can see what's going on just staring at your shoes.
I think I could use I like some of the, when we went from like next gen to Generations and we got the lower lighting in Generations, I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. I could use it around there. I feel like it's a little dark in Picard, but so I'm going to go and I guess really get on a real interior design tangent here.
Hey, you know what? That's just as valid as any other discussion on this episode.
You can fixate on things.
The design is awesome, but also a little dark. But maybe it's because it's supposed to show off all the lighting awesomeness, like the LCARs and all the graphics and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So I had a couple thoughts as I was watching this episode. I think So I was starting to suspect as we were getting the messages from Raffi's handler, I was like, that's an awful lot like how Worf would talk.
Oh, did you think that really?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
I was like, you're a warrior, huh? Huh. Who do we know who says that a lot? Who do we know who doesn't like contractions and hasn't blown up? And I know I made myself sad.
Well, it's not too late.
It's not too late, but he hasn't yet. And so the reveal was still really great, but I really liked my wife's reaction to that. Was like, she said, hell yeah. Hey, wait, isn't he the ambassador to the Klingon Empire? So I'm really interested to hear what happened between those 2 points.
Right.
I think that sort of leads on to I watch Picard sort of with a little defensiveness, I guess I can't think of the right word, but because Next Gen was so very precious to me, and
Guardedness, maybe you were guarded.
Guarded, yeah, guarded, wary. There we go. That's wary. I'm glad that we're back in space after season 2. I'm glad that we have a Starfleet ship, even if the captain's a little grumpy. And I can also, I was telling Paul in the waiting room, I can understand him being a little grumpy because he's sort of looking at Picard and Riker and be like, oh, you're not even trying. That wasn't even a good lie. But he, I think, so there's a couple things that they're little and then they start to add up. And most of the time when I think they start with, of course. So like you were saying, Holly, I was like, of course he's Picard's son.
Riker piled it on so much.
He sure did.
Yeah.
And I, it's the captain's unknown son brought in and revealed at an inopportune moment. The sort of course, he's going to bluff and he's going to lure the guard up to the force field and escape and knock the guard out. Pro tip for anyone who's ever guarding anyone ever: don't engage. Do not engage.
Yeah.
Good advice. Disengage. Don't approach the bars. Don't approach the whatever. You're really not going to gain anything. And then it's sort of like, of course, Raffi's in a busy street on her communicator saying her full name, identifying herself as being from Starfleet Intelligence. I really wanted somebody who's like sitting there and, having some sort of like bug kebab to turn around and be like, oh, hey, you're from Starfleet Intelligence?
Like, thank you.
Oh, hey, guys. Like, just what? I don't know why he talks like that, but it was one of those things that was like, you don't want to go home first?
Yeah.
And you've got of course, Riker just waltzes into sickbay and wakes up the sick person. The doctor's like, hey, and doesn't do anything. And of course, instead of the communicator, it's this slow turbo lift ride, probably preceded by a hobble and followed by a hobble up to the bridge. And then it's just sort of like, look at each other. That's your kid, right? Yeah.
To be fair, though, that look
was amazing.
Gates she didn't even say anything.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Undeniable.
Fantastic acting. Yeah.
Undeniable. And so it just sort of, there's things where I'm like, I don't like to see the writers in the frame is the way that I always phrase it. And I'm 2 episodes in, it's good, but I'm a little worried. I'm like, oh, are we going to be able to avoid these through the rest of the season? And I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. And it's a cool story.
That's the conversation I think Holly and I wanted to continue this with Holly in this discussion about whether or not so many of us have so much expectation because we know so much about these characters. We already know the shorthand, and when shorthand is piled on top of shorthand, you're kind of like seeing, like you said, the writers in the room, because the writers are also now of a generation that they grew up on this Star Trek, this next generation era Star Trek. So there might even be shorthanding their own exposition in order to just facilitate the story. But I really want to talk about, say, this particular season so far, since it's so it's so heavily leaning on the nostalgia and the relationships that have been built over the last 30 plus years to a new person.
37.
It's 37 years.
No, wait, hold on, 35 because it's a year younger than me.
So with a new audience member, someone who's new to Star Trek, who maybe just got in with Picard and doesn't know this information, doesn't have this the anticipation of thinking where the story should go next, as opposed to where the story goes next organically. It would be I think a fascinating conversation to have two people in a room when someone since 1987 who's been watching this all the way to now, sitting and having a conversation with someone who's just started watching it 2 years ago, right? And say, does the story work for you? And they're like, yeah, why? And it's like, didn't you see this coming? Like Riker, like, can't you see who this is?
Yeah.
Don't you know, audience, like who this is? You can't tell me you don't see this.
But I feel but there's also a way to do this and it still feels natural. And I always use Lower Decks as an example of that. Is if you started watching Lower Decks and you were not a Star Trek fan and you miss all of the references and the Easter eggs, you still understand what's going on. And I don't think that it has to be, I don't think Riker needed to pound that in for any new people to understand that this might be Picard's child.
I would love to hear that conversation. I really would, because I think it would be fascinating just to see, the difference between 35 years worth of fan, appreciation and knowledge and history versus someone who has two, and just see if the storyline works in the favor of a new audience, the next generation. So,
I mean, I hope it does, but I feel, well, it might, but I feel like it doesn't do it as well as something like Lower Decks.
It's possible. It's possible. I think that would be fascinating to hear. So, anyone out there that has the dynamic
that's a new viewer, call in.
Let us know. But let's get back to Brandon. So I want to get to Brandon and maybe one more final thought, and then we can get to our next caller.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to agree with you guys about, I really like this villain. She's great at she's not mustache twirling. She's a little quirky. She's very quirky, a little bit weird.
She's super nonchalant too.
Yes.
Here I am. I'm going to destroy you.
Yeah, I'm not terribly worried about this. It saved me a torpedo if I didn't have to blow you up, but
Yeah.
And I love that kind of sort of originality where it's just it's calm, it's casual, it's not it fits, it works, and I have very much enjoyed that. And now I will step away and let Alan jump in here.
Well, thanks,
Alan's
Brandon.
back.
And I hope that the season delivers for you, because I hope it delivers for everybody in the way that it needs to deliver, because that's why we're here, right?
Absolutely.
So, all right, man. Thanks for calling in.
Thank
great
you.
seeing you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Have a good one. All right, Alan.
And
you
Alan's
ready?
here. Alan
Are you
was
ready to
here, and then he got yeeted into space, apparently, by Vatic, and now he's back.
Yeah. Sorry, nebula stuff. It happens. There was interference. Transporter inhibitors were at play. Lots of things. You don't even want to know. But
Alan blunt force trauma the Zoom. Now he's back.
Yes.
Yeah.
It took some doing, but we managed to cross reference and reverse the polarity, and now everything's better. And so it's evening in the Sol system, and we're here to talk about Picard, right?
Right. And I listened to your comments in the last show, and I know it felt like you were a little hesitant, about episode 1. And I know, and you laid out kind of like, I'm here to see some new stuff, because I saw that, Picard's in this situation and the world is dark and there's a world ending weapon. And like you laid out, I think, your concerns, very clearly. Have any of those been assuaged by this episode, or have they just added more concerns?
It's a little bit of both. I listening to Brandon's comments, I do feel the writeriness of it in certain places. Like, I'm not quite as high on Vatic as some people are, apparently. And maybe it's because we got another character this episode that kind of was in the same vibe. Sneed and Vadek both felt like very sort of arch, talky, referencey villains.
Mhm.
Like, I'm going to monologue at you for a while you contemplate your fate.
So Roger Moore era Bond villains.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
A little bit. Yeah, not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, it's just a category.
But there were times when the character did lock in, and I liked her just cackling and being like, get them. that I think worked. That's something that where that character came in. I do kind of still have. You guys were talking earlier also about the Jack Crusher situation and the seeming genetic inheritance of an accent, which
It can't be. They have to address that somewhere. It can be a throwaway line. I don't care.
Exactly.
I want to know where he was raised. Like, clearly he was not raised like. So Beverly was born on the moon. Like, and where did she take? Did she take him back? Did she take him to weird Scottish town that she inherited from her grandmother? Like,
boarding school.
Yeah. Like, I just want to know. It can be a throwaway line. He was raised in whatever, and I'll be like, great.
Yep.
Well, and having listened to the Ready Room episode with Ed Speleers, and listening to him, and that's just his accent.
That is they just let him keep it, and I'm fantastic.
Good for him. But I mean, of the characters from TNG, of anybody, he sounds like he could be Marina's kid more than either Patrick's or Gates's.
Marina did change her accent a little bit, though. Like, that's not her Deanna Troi accent is not her true accent.
Oh no, yeah.
She put a little bit of a spin on it.
No, she's very much. Sorry, I need to dial it in if I'm going to do it, but yeah, she's very much got that traditional, standard, modern British, kind of Cockney but kind of not accent in real life, and so does he.
And she's wildly inappropriate sometimes.
Oh yeah, and apparently they're both Spurs fans, so maybe that's genetic too. But yeah, just I hope that's going somewhere. As far as new stuff, this episode did for me kick off on a very high note. Maybe it's the MCU influence, but spaceships and classic rock, good combination.
Well, Guardians of the Galaxy action.
Yeah, sure. Exactly.
Yeah.
Eating spaceships.
Eating spaceships. Very. I'm still wrapping my brain around that one. So.
Can I interject my biggest annoyance though? Like, because I have to get this in before, because it's been bothering me for weeks. Like,
sure.
It's been bothering me for weeks. Sneed? Did anybody notice that his nails aren't blue?
I was waiting for you to bring that up. I didn't want to force the issue, but I was waiting for you to bring that up.
His nails aren't blue, you guys. And I was like, but he's got a slug of cola. That's a pretty deep Ferengi cut, but they didn't get his nails blue. It's very sad.
Maybe he had. Maybe he just came from a Manny.
I mean, he did say that. Like, my headcanon is that he was like, I like human things, and I was like, maybe he got his nails done to look human.
Exactly.
But Ferengis have blue fingernails, and he should have had blue fingernails.
Yeah,
that's it. I'd step down off of my continuity soapbox.
No, that's cool. Yeah, I think I was too focused on the face.
His makeup is great. Like, I appreciate that they could update the Ferengi without going so overboard that people were going to complain the way that they always have about updated Klingon makeup.
I wanted him to start shooting fireballs because I do like me some pyro. So, all right. So, if you guys ever saw like the first X-Men movie, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah. And he's another 12 Monkeys guy, which. That's another Jack Crusher thing. Apparently, one of the aliases is James Cole, which is the character from 12 Monkeys.
There you go.
I think Aaron's character from 12 Monkeys, if I remember right.
I don't remember. You probably remember better than me.
So we have about a little bit of time for you and a little bit of time for one more call-in, Alan. So just any last thoughts on this episode before we have to let you go?
Just that I'm glad I made it. And I enjoy I'm enjoying the season. I'm enjoying the episodes. Very curious to see where it's all going to, and hopefully when it all pays off, it'll be something that makes sense.
Worth your 10 hours of watching it.
I hope
Fingers
so.
crossed.
I mean, I do want that for everyone. I hope you get the season that you wanted, and sometimes they hit, sometimes they miss, but I think that I hope that we can mine as much enjoyment out of this as we possibly can, because that's why we're here.
Exactly.
So, all right, thanks, Alan. It was great seeing you. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah,
and let's see, we're on to the next caller. I do believe we have Cooley.
Cooley, hello.
Are you there?
He's called in from his phone, it looks like.
Yeah. Let's see. Do we have a connection there, Earl? Are you muted?
Unmute.
There,
Unmute, Cooley. Well,
until we get him on.
Everybody in the chat is like, nice catch, Holly. Listen about the blue fingernails. And I told Norm this too. When I don't know how many of you have been to Star Trek Las Vegas. Plenty of you. When it was still licensed, and they started introducing Quark's Bar, and then they started having character actors in the bar. The costumes from the 3 character actors and the Morn, I had a friend do creation, commissioned it from a friend of mine, and I helped her. And when we got to the show, I went into the makeup room, which is way in the back of the hall, and I had blue fingernail polish, and I was like, put this on the Ferengis. They have to have. So now I fixate on it. It's not really that I have a good eye. It's that it's something that I fixated on in the past.
But you have an eye for it. And
some people are saying that he didn't have Ferengi teeth, which I was more fixated on his nails. Maybe he didn't. And there's some really funny promotional shots of the Ferengis from The Last Outpost, which is when they're introduced in The Next Generation. They had teeth in the episode, but these promotional shots that got taken, they don't, and they're smiling really big, and they just have human teeth. And those never really got officially released because of that. So
we'll have to bring that up in the Discord. First of all, we're looking for old pictures of Ferengi with teeth and blue
weird teeth polish. And nail. Yeah.
But before we get to that, we have one last caller. I'm glad to see you, JD, that you were able to get piped in here. So how you doing? Thanks for calling. Let's have your microphone turn on there, sir. Yeah, that would help.
Where did Cooley go? Cooley
I don't
left.
know. Cooley
there
left.
We go. Yeah,
that's all right. We have JD, and JD's gonna bring it on for us.
I'm a Luddite with technology.
That's right. You got it.
This show, boy, it's keeping me guessing. The design work is great. I'm really enjoying seeing watching the behind the scenes interviews and finding out how much work they're putting into all this. I'm very impressed. All the little Easter eggs. When I rewatch this episode, little Easter eggs of Ferengi stuff in the past. I'll be interested to see that.
Hey, JD, let me interrupt you for a second. This is the first time that I've talked to you. So how long have you been either a Star Trek fan or Next Generation fan or both?
I have been a Star Trek fan since my best friend in 9th grade, 1994, talked me into going to see Star Trek Generations with him because he was already a Trekkie and I wasn't. But I let him talk me into it. I walked out of there having watched 2 or 3 episodes of Star Trek in my life with my dad when we were much younger. And I walked out a Star Trek fan. We went to the store after, and I bought LaForge and Data action figures.
Awesome.
I've been a fan ever since. A couple times, like my friend and I will have these long, 2-hour conversations, and I said, and never forget that this is your fault for taking me to see Generations in the first place.
It's a good friend.
I blame my parents. I say the same thing to my parents. Like, this is your fault.
I'm like,
because they're Trekkies.
I wouldn't, if not for that. I know Generations gets a lot of there's not a lot of warm fuzzy feelings for it. There's a lot of criticism that gets directed at that movie, but I genuinely like the movie and everything about it, and I'm biased as hell for it.
Perfect.
But it's like we left that movie, and then he had a bunch of VHS tapes, some of which he'd actually bought, and some of which were blank tapes that recorded episodes off TV, and we just started watching all that stuff.
The good old days.
Yeah.
When I do the math on that, I'm like, okay, I'm well into my almost third decade of Star Trek fandom, though.
Awesome.
And I'm like, I can't believe the sheer volume of Star Trek that we have now. It's amazing. Like, there's no shortage of it, and I'm constantly impressed with all the different directions that these productions are taking. Like, we're seeing Star Trek from like the street level and the ground level in ways that we never really got to see before, with the lower deckers and the smaller characters that can make reference to things we've seen on the screen. But it's just so nice to see all the facets for Star Trek they're working on, because I remember when Enterprise ended with that finale.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking at one point, boy, I hope that's not the last of the Star Trek we're getting, because
little did we know.
What a way to go out.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I've said this before, is that wasn't a bad episode. It was just bad to be the finale, because it was about TNG, not about Enterprise.
I think it would have been a perfectly fine episode if it had been just somewhere
in the middle. If it had been, in the middle of the Dominion War, we get a baseball episode that's fun and happy, and it's a throwaway episode, but everybody loves it. It's my favorite episode. And if they had taken that episode and put it in the middle of everything, instead of it being the finale, and taking that sort of away from that cast, it would have been fine.
Oh, maybe because watch it like in a Hatchet kind of, viewing order. You can watch it as you like.
Exactly, because honestly, the biggest tragedy of that episode is the big speech that Archer was practicing for the whole episode. We didn't get to see it. We didn't. We got to see him walk out into the auditorium, and like, it's a real far away shot, but we didn't get to hear the beginning of it or some sort of dramatic. Well, it would have been an Archer speech, so it would have been big on words and inspirational, but with
dry.
I was gonna say with the dry Scott Bakula delivery that I love so much, but I'm like, it wouldn't have been like a Picard speech or a Spock speech.
Bringing it back to Picard, because we're gonna have to put a pin in this and talk about this maybe a couple years in the future when we actually do Enterprise. But we're gonna, if you have like one last thought about Picard Disengage that you'd like to share with the audience, because we are running a little bit short on time, we kind of have to wrap up the show.
I know. Sorry, and I will just.
That's okay. I love your enthusiasm, man. Please don't. If I could do this for 2 more hours, I would. But we kind of have to wrap it up.
I'll say, Worf is my favorite Star Trek character. So I was excited when they announced that Michael Dorn was coming back to play this character, but I knew he was going to be in. I didn't know how or where they were going to bring him in, but as soon as I saw that sword go through the guy, and I'm like, oh, here he is.
There it is.
Here he is. And he's wearing mostly all black. Like, his baldric is like stealthy now. Mm-hmm. And he's got the sword on the back ready for action. And I'm just like, Worf, I don't know what you've been doing all this time, but holy shit, what a way to make an entrance.
He's been practicing.
Yeah.
He's been cutting up watermelons.
I can't wait to see where that goes. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do here because I'm expecting some surprises. Personally, I want to see Harry Kim come in as the commander, but I will continue hoping for that until Garrett Wang gets to show up in this time period again, and we get to see that he actually got promoted eventually.
But in the meantime, we have Worf.
Yeah, no one wants that more probably than Garrett himself.
But I appreciate you letting me on the show. I just wanted to gush a little bit about this show because I'm excited where it's going.
We'll come back because I'm excited to hear your thoughts on Worf as we see more of him.
All right, we'll do.
Thanks, everybody. The kind of stuff you want to bottle.
I can't do the hand symbol, or I would. But
thanks, JD. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate your call, and keep up that enthusiasm, man. It's infectious. Love it. Absolutely love it. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Sometimes, Holly, I still do think this every time I start a show. I'm like, how are we going to fill an hour?
I know.
And
then you get stories about how people became fans, and I'm fixated. I love those stories.
I just want to turn the mic on and say, let it run. Because we all, I think, we appreciate that because we all have our first fandom story, and I think we all just get a lot of kind of like that renewed sense of energy and appreciation for why we're all here. And I think that's fantastic. And there's still a lot of conversation to be had about this. So if you'd like to continue the conversation, you can always visit us at patreon.com/mission log. Check out how you can support us. And then through your support, you can join our Discord where we continue these conversations, either about Picard or a variety of other subjects that, cover all of Star Trek or all different types of fandom. So please check us out there. We would love to have you there. And once you sign up and support us, I usually scan the Patreon subscriptions every day, let new people in almost all the time. So please check this out. That's patreon.com/mission log. Hope to see you there. Hope you can join us on Discord. So that's it, Holly. That is our show. That is Picard. We have engaged, disengaged. So any last thoughts?
No, I think we're good to go.
We're good to go.
I'll have more thoughts next week, though.
I know. I'm excited for episode 3, and we're going to return next week with John and Holly manning the con here at Mission Log Live. But until then, Mission Log Live is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment, technical production, and for Mission Log and Mission Log Live by Earl Green, the Duke of the Earl Green Room. Be sure to visit podcast.roddenberry.com for the latest from Roddenberry Podcasts. If you'd like to support Mission Log directly, give us a look at patreon.com/Mission Log. Thank you, Holly. It was great to have you back and great to team up with you again. I missed you. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I missed you too. Yay.
And thanks to everyone here in the chat who's joined us live, and hopefully you can join us later. We look forward to reviewing the next episode of Star Trek Picard on Mission Log Live with you next week.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.